1977. The Bee Gees were on top of the world, but Barry Gibb was about to lose the one thing fame couldn't fix. So he wrote a song, not for the charts, but for forgiveness. How Deep Is Your Love wasn't just another Bee Gees hit. It was a question and a plea that saved his marriage. Fame, pressure, and the cracks in paradise. By the mid-1970s, the Bee Gees weren't just popular, they were everywhere. After a rocky start and a few quiet years, Barry, Robin, and Morris Gibb had reinvented themselves. Gone were the melancholy ballads of the late 60s. In their place came a new, electric pulse, Jive Talkin', You Should Be Dancing, and later, Stayin' Alive. Suddenly, three brothers from Manchester had become the sound of the decade. But success never arrives alone. It brings long nights, relentless schedules, and 1,000 invisible cracks beneath the shine. In 1976, as the world danced, Barry Gibb's world was slowly pulling apart. His marriage to Linda Gray, a former Miss Edinburgh he'd met backstage at a British TV show, had always been his anchor. She had known him before the silk suits and spotlight glare, before BG meant global phenomenon. But fame tests everything it touches, the endless travel, the rehearsals that bled into dawn, the reporters waiting outside every hotel. They left little room for quiet moments. Barry was often gone for months, chasing studio deadlines and chart pressure, while Linda tried to keep a sense of normal life alive at home. Rumors followed him everywhere, about women, parties, temptation. Most were untrue, but they still reached the doorstep. Friends later said Barry seemed torn between the stage and the silence he craved. He'd talk about wanting a song that felt like coming home, something honest, stripped of glamour, that spoke to the woman who still waited for him through the noise. And that was when it started, a few notes on a piano late one night, words written not for a fan base, but for one person. The world would soon call it, How Deep Is Your Love? For Barry, it was never a hit in the making. It was a question he needed to ask. How deep was love when distance, fame, and exhaustion began to hollow out the in-between? How much could two people endure before the music stopped? The melody answered first, soft, steady, and pleading. The song that would save his marriage had just been born. Writing in the Shadows. It began quietly, not under spotlights or in a glamorous Los Angeles studio, but in a secluded French estate, surrounded by stillness and soundproof walls. The Bee Gees had come to Chateau d'Herouville to work on new material, far from the chaos that fame brought. It was a place where legends like Elton John and David Bowie once searched for truth in sound. Now, it was the Gibb brothers' turn. While Saturday Night Fever was taking shape, a project that would soon define a generation, Barry Gibb was searching for something smaller, more intimate. He didn't want another anthem that made people dance. He wanted one that made them feel. He sat at the piano one night, the candles nearly out, the room heavy with fatigue. Maurice and Robin worked on other tracks nearby. Barry's hands moved slowly across the keys, softer, slower, almost hesitant. Then came the first line that would change everything. I feel you touch me in the pouring rain. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a whisper. A conversation only two people could understand. Barry later admitted he didn't set out to write a hit. He set out to write honesty. In the whirlwind of celebrity life, he'd lost the quiet tone of real affection. So, this song became his message in a bottle. The melody grew that night, gentle piano chords layered with light harmonies. Maurice shaped the bass line like a heartbeat, steady and warm. Robin's falsetto blended in like a ghost in the background, delicate, emotional, almost protective. Together, the brothers built something pure, a contrast to the neon glow of disco that surrounded them. It wasn't about the groove or the spotlight anymore. It was about connection. Barry's lyrics were deliberate. And you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love, then you softly leave. Each line carried longing, the ache of someone who'd been gone too long, asking for patience, for understanding, for faith. He didn't know it then, but in trying to heal himself, he was writing a song that would heal millions. When he sang those words for the first time, even his brothers fell silent, and in that silence, a masterpiece was born. The Hidden Message to Linda. Behind every great love song lies a truth too personal to explain. For Barry Gibb, that truth was Linda. Their love story began long before disco lights, before fame, before the silk shirts, before Stayin' Alive turned the Bee Gees into icons. Barry met Linda Gray in 1967 on the set of a British TV show called Top of the Pops. She was a young beauty queen from Scotland, full of quiet confidence. He was a shy, rising musician with ambition that outshone his words. They married in 1970, before the world claimed him. But marriage doesn't pause for success, and success rarely pauses for marriage. As the Bee Gees soared through the 1970s, Barry's life became a constant performance. Studio days turned into sleepless nights. Reporters followed them across continents. Fame magnified every rumor, every shadow, every whispered lie. Linda, who had once known the simple version of Barry, the man who laughed easily and played guitar barefoot in the garden, now had to share him with millions. And somewhere between the headlines and hotel rooms, she started to wonder if she still had the same place in his world. Barry felt it too, that quiet distance, that unspoken fear that love, even the strongest kind, can fade in the noise. So he wrote her a message, not in a letter, not in words, but in music. And you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love, then you softly leave. It wasn't about infidelity or heartbreak. It was about longing, the kind that grows between two people who are still in love, but rarely in the same room. Every lyric carried something he wanted to say, but couldn't. I believe in you. You know the door to my very soul. It was his confession and his promise. When Linda first heard the finished version, she said nothing. She just smiled. Barry later admitted that she understood what he was saying without words. That song became their bridge. And every time he performed it afterward, it wasn't just for the crowd. It was for her, for the woman who kept his world steady when everything else spun out of control. A song that healed more than one heart. When How Deep Is Your Love was finally released in September 1977, it didn't explode. It bloomed, slowly, softly, and beautifully. Unlike the pulsing energy of Stayin' Alive or Night Fever, this song didn't demand attention, it invited it. It floated through radios late at night, echoing through quiet bedrooms, car rides, and wedding halls. And something remarkable happened. People didn't just listen, they felt. Within weeks, radio stations began receiving letters, handwritten notes from listeners who said the song helped them find their way back to someone they'd lost. One fan wrote, "My husband and I hadn't spoken for days. He played this song one morning without saying a word. We've been together ever since." Another said, "This isn't a song, it's therapy." It was as if Barry's plea to Linda had become a universal language for anyone trying to hold on to love in a world that moved too fast. Couples danced to it at their weddings. Some used it to apologize. Others just played it on loop, hoping someone would understand them the way the lyrics did. Even the Bee Gees themselves felt its quiet power. Maurice once said, "It didn't feel like we wrote it. It felt like it came through us." And Robin called it the softest thunder we ever made. Critics who once dismissed the Bee Gees as disco kings were suddenly writing about depth. Rolling Stone praised the track for its unshakable sincerity. Others called it a masterclass in intimacy, noting that no other group at the time dared to sound that vulnerable. Amid the thumping heartbeat of the disco era, How Deep Is Your Love stood apart. It reminded people that love isn't always loud or perfect. Sometimes it's just steady, fragile, and endlessly patient. Barry would later say that he felt something change in him when the song hit #1. It wasn't pride, it was peace. Because by the time the world was singing his words, the cracks in his marriage had already begun to heal. But what the public didn't know was that this quiet masterpiece almost never made it out of the studio. The battle for release. You'd think that a song like How Deep Is Your Love, tender, timeless, and perfect, would have been an obvious choice for release. But inside the record label offices, it sparked debate instead of certainty. RSO Records wanted energy. They wanted a track that could ignite the dance floors and sell the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack before the film even hit theaters. Executives pushed for Stayin' Alive or Night Fever. Disco was the heartbeat of the late 70s. and a slow love ballad, they argued, might cool the momentum. Barry Gibb disagreed. To him, How Deep Is Your Love wasn't a gamble. It was the soul of the album. He told his brothers, "This one's not about charts. It's about truth." The discussions grew heated. The label wanted glitter. Barry wanted grace. But he stood his ground. He believed that before the world danced, it needed to feel. Finally, after weeks of back and forth, Barry's intuition won. The song was chosen as the lead single in September 1977, released quietly, without much expectation. No one realized yet that this gentle ballad would outlast every disco hit it sat beside. But even after its release, peace didn't last long. In 1983, a Chicago songwriter named Ronald Sell filed a lawsuit claiming the Bee Gees had copied parts of one of his songs. The case dragged on for years, casting a shadow over one of their most sincere creations. For Barry, the accusation cut deep. "How could someone think we'd steal something that personal?" he said later. The trial became a strange echo of the song's own message, a test of trust, faith, and endurance. Eventually, the court ruled in favor of the Bee Gees. Their integrity stood untouched, and when the verdict was announced, Barry returned home, sat at the piano, and played the song again, slowly, softly, as if reclaiming it. He said, "It finally felt like ours again." And perhaps that's what made How Deep Is Your Love even stronger. It survived the noise of fame, the doubt of strangers, and still sounded pure. The song that began as a whisper between two hearts had now faced the world and won. When the plea turned into a promise. By the winter of 1977, How Deep Is Your Love had quietly taken over the world. It climbed the Billboard charts with the patience of a heartbeat, not explosive, but steady, unstoppable. By December, it reached number 1 and stayed there for 3 weeks, eventually becoming one of the longest-running top 10 hits of the decade. Everywhere you turned, the song played. In cafes, weddings, hotel lobbies, dimly lit cars parked by the ocean. It was the kind of song people trusted, not to make them dance, but to make them remember what love felt like before life got complicated. For the Bee Gees, this moment was different. They had written dozens of hits before, but this one carried something heavier, a quiet victory. Barry wasn't just topping charts, he was repairing something that fame had cracked. At home, his marriage to Linda found new rhythm. They started spending more time together again, often escaping to Miami to breathe away from the spotlight. Barry stopped chasing headlines and began cherishing silence. Family dinners, lazy mornings, laughter without cameras. He once said, "You can have all the gold records in the world, but if you go home to silence, it means nothing." That was the lesson How Deep Is Your Love taught him. The song had started as a question, fragile, uncertain, whispered into the chaos. Now it has become a promise, a vow that love, when nurtured, could outlast the noise. On stage, Barry sang it differently after that. There was no showmanship, no flash, just a man closing his eyes, letting the words pour out like prayer. Even decades later, when he performs the song, he often dedicates it to Linda, his partner through more than 50 years of fame, tragedy, and triumph. In interviews, he calls her "my calm," and you can hear it in his voice. That same warmth, that same plea that began in a lonely recording room and ended forever. Because How Deep Is Your Love wasn't written for the world just happened to be listening. Legacy that outlasted disco. When the disco lights finally dimmed, most songs from the era faded with them. But How Deep Is Your Love refused to age. As the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack went on to sell over 40 million copies, becoming one of the best-selling albums in history, this song quietly separated itself from the glitter and groove. It wasn't tied to a dance floor. It belonged to something deeper, the human heart. While Stayin' Alive captured survival, How Deep Is Your Love captured surrender. The moment when pride melts into vulnerability. It became the Bee Gees' eternal signature of tenderness. Over the decades, new generations rediscovered it. In 1996, Take That's cover turned it into a hit once again, proving that true love songs never expire. Artists from P.J. Morton to Yebba have reimagined it in their own styles, yet somehow, the core emotion, that whisper between two hearts, remains untouched. Barry Gibb once said, "Songs like that outlive you. They belong to people now." And he was right, even now at concerts when Barry sings that final line, "And it's me you need to show." The audience often finishes it for him, a collective reminder of love that refuses to fade. It's no longer just a Bee Gees song, it's a mirror, reflecting every listener who's ever asked that same question, how deep is your love? Because while disco had its moment, love songs like this, they don't belong to a decade, they belong to eternity. Fame fades, trends change, but love, real love, endures. For Barry and Linda Gibb, How Deep Is Your Love wasn't a song, it was a promise whispered through time, one that outlived disco, distance, and doubt. Decades later, when Barry sings it, his voice still trembles with the same plea that saved everything. Because this song was never just written for the world, it was written to keep a heart from breaking. If this story touched you, subscribe to Backstage Melody, where every classic hit hides a heartbeat and every melody tells a secret worth remembering.